these kids are going to be okay. If you love them, you pay attention, you do your best. I mean, boy, it really is hard. I don't want to make it sound easy, but truly, if you care about your kid, it's going to be okay.
Hello, my friends. I'm so happy to be with you today. My name is Katie Taylor, and I am a certified child life specialist. On this show, we bring you parent stories that help all of us, families, and care teams understand what it looks like to support a child through a medical experience. You'll hear what's helped, what didn't, and the practical strategies that families use to advocate, cope, and keep going. Today, I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to Stacey Sims, whose son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes just before his second birthday back in 2006. She walks us through those early signs, what she calls the 4 T's: thirsty, thinner, tired, and toilet. You'll hear how a normal fasting finger stick initially created doubt and why an A1C of 11.5 confirmed the diagnosis. Plus, Stacey's important advice on pushing for more testing if something doesn't add up. Stacey takes us inside those first hospital days, learning injections on tiny little doses just because of the size of her child, the reality of going home with syringes, and the 2-week adjustment it took to make shots and finger pokes a part of the routine. What she found that worked really well was loving, calm, consistent without turning every dose into a huge production. She shares simple, repeatable strategies child life specialists love and know, which is letting kids return to baseline between the finger sticks, using medical play. Yes, even Elmo and Bob the Builder got infusion sets, and giving kids safe choices and language to express their frustration, right down to using potty words if they need to during painful moments. We also talk about the long game, how education shifts as her son grew. So how she explained diabetes at 2 years old was different than when he went to school, different than when he was a preteen, different than when he was a teenager, and how he relied on community, but also she did too. Stacey now hosts Mom's Night Out events, and it's where veteran parents teach younger parents about mindset, and younger parents can teach the older ones about newer tech, and how all of that has changed over the course of her son's diagnosis and daily management for diabetes. Stacey is so clear that there's no perfect standard to live up to. And if you love your kids, you pay attention to what they need, and you continue to learn, then your kids and you can thrive regardless of what the diagnosis is, whether it's diabetes or something else. Stacey is also the host of Diabetes Connections and the author of the World's Worst Diabetes Mom series. These are resources built to inform and encourage families without the pressure of just getting everything right. As you listen to our conversation today, she's also going to talk about how community is so important. You have to let go of perfect. And when you join a community of other parents just like you, that is when you see that no one is living a perfect life. So let it go. Let's jump into Stacey's conversation. I have a special thank you just for you, our podcast listener. Right now, you can get free access to our most popular course and masterclass, How to Prepare, Support, and Respond to Your Child During Shots, Blood Draws, and Vaccines. You can also get access to how to use comfort positioning in pediatrics. These courses usually sell together for over $250, but we're giving it away to you for free. All you have to do is leave a written review for this podcast, Child Life on Call, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Give us a quick screenshot of your submitted review to podcast@childlifeoncall.com. Once we get your email, we'll send you the course completely for free. There are no strings attached, just our way of saying thank you for supporting the show and helping more parents find our podcast. Send us a screenshot of your review to podcast@childlifeoncall.com. That's PODCAST @childlifeoncall.com. Can't wait to get you free access to this course.
Thanks so much for having me, Katie. My son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes right before he turned 2. That was back in 2006. So he is now 20 years old. He's lived with type 1, which used to be called juvenile diabetes, but you can get it as an adult. And certainly I want my son to keep living with it as an adult. So it's called type 1 diabetes. He's had it for 18 years now. My background is in local radio and television news, worked in that industry for a long time. When it was time to go, because I got tired of getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I decided to start a podcast. So I started Diabetes Connections in 2015 to provide news and information and inspiration all around type 1. And from that, it's grown into a lot of different things. but I'm always excited to provide information and inspiration to the diabetes community and now hopefully to your community.
Absolutely. Well, we have so many parents that join us and listen to this across diagnoses, from
Yeah.
diabetes to cancer to asthma, appendicitis, everywhere in between. And one of the things I think you say so perfectly with this connection piece is that really, regardless of what the diagnosis is, parents tend to feel the same things and go through the same amount of ups and downs and hardships and things that you learn and ways to advocate. So I know no matter who is listening, they're going to pick up pieces from your story. And I'm grateful that you're such an advocate. And as a person who loves to share resources myself, knowing that I can safely share Diabetes Connection and Stacey Sims, it means a lot to me as a healthcare professional.
I really
So
appreciate that. Thank you.
of course. Well, walk us back if you can remember the early days of knowing that something was going on with your son, but not quite knowing what was happening and what that was like.
Yeah, and most type 1 diabetes diagnoses in kids is very acute, but it also comes on slowly, if that makes sense. And I'll explain
Yeah.
our situation. So now they know a lot more about type 1 in terms of stages. And there are a few stages that you do not recognize. You can't really see what's going on in the body. That's a different and detailed conversation. They're
Yeah.
starting screening for it. It's very exciting. But
Wow.
back in 2006, we noticed that he was drinking and peeing more. Classic signs
Okay.
of type 1 diabetes are, and I love how they say this in the UK, the four T's: thirsty, thinner, tired, toilet. I think we don't say it in the US like this because we don't like the word toilet, but I bring
Yeah.
it up everywhere because it's really simple to remember. My kid was incredibly thirsty, and it wasn't like, oh, it's a hot day outside. He'll drink an extra glass of water. This was a 30-pound kid that you would give a 16-ounce sippy cup. He would slam it and want more,
Wow. Okay.
immediately. Very tired, started taking naps at very strange times. During fun family activities, he would just lay right down. You know that meme, the little girl on the beach? She's like, I take a nap right here. I go sleep
Yeah.
right here. He would
Yeah.
just do that at random times.
Yeah.
Thinner, this was the big tip off. He lost 3 pounds in 3 weeks. So he went from
Wow.
30 pounds to 27 pounds, which we didn't know until we took him in for an exam, but we could see it. And toilet, he was peeing all the time and he was still in a diaper. So it was crazy. He went from 1 month where we would notice that he was just, peeing his bed through his diaper
Yeah.
to, and then being okay for a couple days. And then finally in November during Thanksgiving, it was just impossible to keep him in a diaper. And that was when I called our pediatrician and said, something's up. And interestingly, she said, I've never seen type 1 in a kid younger than 2, but bring him in and we'll rule it out. And we were very lucky that she even took it seriously because some health care providers do miss it.
Yeah. What did that feel like to be told that at the beginning?
You know, it was scary, but at the same time, I was a health reporter.
Okay.
And I knew just
Mm.
enough to know that these were classic signs of type 1. So I was terrified and I was horrified. But what happened was we brought him in and his fasting blood glucose level, which they do with a finger stick, I think a lot of us are familiar with that. It was 80, which is perfectly normal. And that got a little scary because I thought to myself, if this is the classic sign of type 1, all of these signs, and it's not type 1, what is it? Because something's wrong with my kid. But
Right.
they took a blood draw and it turned out it was pretty early in the diagnosis. And sometimes overnight, the body can work pretty well.
Wow.
So, yeah, so his A1C, which is a 3-month measure of your blood glucose, put very simply, there's a lot more to it than that. That was extremely elevated. It should be 6 or under. It was 11.5. So that's when we knew it was type 1. So by the time we got that and a couple of days had gone by, I was actually strangely relieved because I
Yeah.
knew we could manage type 1. My brain had gone to some crazy
You'd gone to worst
places.
case. Yeah.
I'd been foolishly on the internet, so I was really concerned when we got the type 1 diagnosis. It was horrible, but in a strange way, it was a relief.
So, is this something that parents should advocate for and pay attention to? That if a provider only wants to do the finger stick, ask for more testing?
I would say 100%.
Okay.
If you've gotten to the finger stick stage for some reason, and I
Yeah,
personally think this should be part of a well visit.
sure.
It's so easy to catch, glucose in the urine. And then if there is a finger stick, maybe not a fasting finger stick, doing it in the afternoon or just after a meal. If there's any suspicions, definitely push for more because it is a very easy diagnosis. It's a difficult one to manage, but it's
Sure.
not hard to get there. And the problem is that undiagnosed type 1 diabetes is a death sentence. There's no
Yeah.
simple way around it. It's not something that can linger for a very long time. There's a terrifying condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA, and
Yeah.
45% of people in the United States are still diagnosed with diabetes in DKA. So
Yeah.
this is a diagnosis that is missed all the time. It looks like the flu. It can look like I said, oh, I'm just thirsty in the summer. There are so many times when it's missed and it can become critical. And like I said, the screening part is really exciting to me because it's a way to catch it much earlier. But that is very new, and I can give you more information later about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So you get the call from the doctor, heading straight to the hospital. We're suspicious that it's diabetes. You're thrust into a 2 to 3 day hospitalization with people walking in and out of your room. Tell me what that process was like. And then I also want to follow up. And as a child life specialist myself, I'm interested in what worked for your son in terms of finger sticks,
Ugh.
picky eater, and everything that goes with managing with a toddler.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it was funny when they called us to go to the hospital. It was this beautiful sunny day. It was a Saturday morning. He was feeling great. He'd actually had a urinary tract infection that
Okay.
the pediatrician had spotted during that blood glucose test. That's what she diagnosed him with. So he was on antibiotics for a couple of days. He was feeling great. And they called me and said, "Get your butt to the hospital." And I was like, "Why? He's fine." And they were like, "No, no, 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 no. Pack a bag. You're going." So we went, and it was a little frustrating, frankly, Katie, because I didn't find out until the middle of that night. I finally asked somebody, like, "Can you give me a diagnosis?" And they were all waiting for the pediatric endocrinologist to get there. But
Got it.
nobody said to me, "Your son has type 1." I think everyone thought that someone else had done it.
Yeah.
So I finally asked the hospitalist who came in the middle of the night, and they were like, "Yeah, your son has type 1 diabetes." And I was like, "Oh my God." So it was a weird, it was a
Oh,
weird process, but I mean, he was 23 months old. He was in a crib in a hospital
yeah.
room. He was okay. He was not happy, obviously, for finger sticks or any kind of, I mean, he started getting insulin injections right away,
Right away.
so he did not enjoy that, but he was okay in between. We did a ton of education. The man who turned out to be the endocrinologist that my son still sees got right down on the floor to play with him and learn about him. He was wonderful. And we got a lot of education. We had a nurse stop by who was not our nurse, but she poked her head in and said, "Hey, I have type 1 diabetes, and I want to let you know it's going to be okay." That was a
Yeah.
life changing moment for us because we
Mm.
had a bunch of nightmare scenarios. And here's a woman coming in going like, "I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
pregnant. I have a kid at home and I'm okay. And I'm working in a hospital and your son's going to be fine." So that was
Oh, wow.
extremely helpful, really set us on the right track. And then they kicked us out. Oh, no, they made sure we could give shots first
Got it.
because my husband had given shots. His mom had type 2 diabetes. So he had given some insulin injections. I had never given a shot in my life. They wouldn't let us leave until I could do it. And we didn't use insulin pens. You might be familiar with that. It
Right.
literally looks like a pen. You dial up the bottom and then you just press it on the skin and press down. Still scary, still a shot.
Yeah.
But I had to the doses were so teeny tiny that we had to use a vial and a syringe. So we're like eyeballing,
Right.
pulling out the insulin
He's little.
and then you're injecting your little dude with this big syringe. It was horrible. So they sent us home. To answer your question, it was a freaking nightmare for 2 weeks because
Yeah.
the finger sticks he didn't really care that much about. He was cool with that. And he would just kind of stick his hand out after a day or two. The insulin injections were as bad as you can imagine. Here's a kid who all of a sudden everyone who he loves is stabbing him. The people
Yeah.
he trusts are now hurting him. I describe it as 2 weeks of crying and sweating and screaming, and that was me. I mean, it was horrible. The doctor told us, and I thought it was such good advice, you have to pretend this is normal. And don't forget, he's 23 months old. There's not a lot of this that he's going to remember. Doesn't mean you
Sure.
need to be cruel or feel heartless, but you need to keep it calm, make it part of the routine, do it as lovingly as you can, lots of hugs and praise, but do not. He's like a sticker chart's okay, but don't buy him a pony.
Yeah.
This needs to be like brushing your teeth, or you're going to regret it in a year or two when you have to buy him a Porsche. So I was like,
Oh,
okay. So we would hug him, hold him, give him a shot, tell him how brave he was, and then he would run and play. And about 2 weeks in, he was like, I'm good. And he would just stick out an arm. He was ambidextrous, which we didn't know. So as long as he
oh,
didn't have to stop playing, he didn't like being interrupted. He was very serious about his Legos or whatever. But if
of
he
course.
would stick out his arm, stick out his leg, we were doing it in his butt cheek, like anywhere we could pinch a little bit of fat.
Yeah.
And it was truly 2 weeks later. It was like magic. He was fine. It was shocking to me how fine he was because I wasn't fine.
And it's so hard when you're in the phase of it being really hard. You don't see an end to it. You think it's gonna last
Oh,
this way forever,
my
and
heart rate is up and I'm sweating
just
telling you
talking
about it.
about it. And one of the things that you're bringing up, which we know about kids in hospitals or who have to undergo painful procedures, is that, and it's something I've seen, is that it's okay to cry and be upset and sweat and scream when something hurts. What you want to look for is how is he coping between, and is he
Mm,
able to recover and get back to his baseline afterwards? And you've said it twice as you're telling this story that he'd be fine in between. He would play on the floor, then he'd go back to playing. And that's just wonderful to hear because it means that you were doing so many things right to love him, praise him. You're the parent, so you're setting boundaries. Like, you did an amazing job.
I wish I had you in my ear back then because boy, did I feel like I was doing a lousy job.
Of course, yeah, because you had no choice. You saved his life every time you did it.
Oh,
And he went back to playing and it was a hard, sorry, like a fucking hard 2 weeks.
it
You
was.
know? Really hard and I can't compare it to anything, but it's like when you're in the throes of sleep training and potty training and
Mhm.
anything that's a new learning curve, it just sucks so bad at the
Yeah.
beginning. And then
And I
you need
will
to go.
say that part got easier, but I don't want to have a woe is me moment because I know there are people listening. Everybody's got something going on, right?
Absolutely.
Type 1 diabetes does it gets easier in some ways, but you are you are constantly facing challenges and I don't know. I go back and forth, Katie, and I'm sure you understand this. Like, I do not want to be the voice of doom because I have a happy, healthy kid who had a great childhood. But boy, we worked our asses off to get there. There's so
Yeah.
much that you have to do. There's so many, I mean, you're managing this condition. Insulin is such a powerful substance and it can be
Yeah.
unpredictable in many ways. You're not consulting with a doctor every time you dose your child. And you're dosing, we gave him shots 10 times a day for the first 6 months because then we got an insulin pump. But there was a new insulin that had just been approved for children. In the olden days of diabetes, you'd get like 1 or 2 shots a day and then you would eat to the insulin, which seems good, but it's very unpredictable. And people had much more devastating low blood sugars, much more devastating high blood sugars, very unpredictable. With this kind of regimen, which they call MDI or multiple daily injections, you can take a shot and eat, take a shot and eat. You mentioned a picky eater. Thank God he wasn't a picky eater, but he was a frequent eater, like most toddlers, a
Yeah.
grazer.
Hmm.
And in the olden days of diabetes, they would have been limited to eating at certain times of day, certain amounts of food. And I've talked to those parents. You want to talk about a nightmare and food
Yeah.
issues for the rest of your life. With Benny, we were able to just, oh, you're hungry now? Here's some insulin, here's your food. I'm making it sound a lot more simple than it is.
Of
But boy,
course.
is it better. Is it better than it's 10:30, you must eat this full meal regardless of your hunger level.
Ugh, also
Yeah.
hard. Also
Oh,
hard. One of the things I'm interested in, because he's really had it throughout his lifespan, is that as he's grown and changed and developed, he's understood more. Did you find yourself having to, obviously, at a toddler age level, teach him about diabetes, and then at preschool when it meant, and then he got older to school age, and then more questions came, and so up and so forward?
yes, it's been very funny. I mean, you saw me kind of laughing when you asked that question. I interview him about once a year for my podcast.
Love
And we
it.
just had an argument. He just came on, like I said, he's 20. Because I don't think he knows anything about diabetes. I mean, he knows nothing. I can't believe how little he knows, but he knows himself very well. He manages it beautifully, like he's fine. But I would say something, I mean, and he's like, I don't understand what that is. How do you not know? Yes, the conversations that we would have at age 2 were extremely different than just age 4 or 5. And I'm not talking about, you know, well, a good example is like, why do we have to do all of this? When you're 4, it's like because you want to feel good and play with your friends. right? You want to be able to have the energy. When you're 8, maybe it's, I want to be able to play soccer. You need to sleep well tonight so that you can get up and go to school. When they get a little older, you can start talking about things like diabetic complications and avoiding them. You can talk about responsibility in different ways. Yeah, but it's a difficult conversation to have. And sometimes I wonder, frankly, if I did it okay, because like I said, he doesn't know anything, but he knows enough. Like he knows that he needs to dose and keep his pump charged and that kind of stuff. But I said something about his kidneys, and he was like, "What does that have to do with anything?"
It makes me laugh though, Stacey. Are you on TikTok or do you ever watch Reels?
I'm on
And
reels.
there are these videos that come up and they just make me laugh for the future of text messages that your teenage kids send
Yes,
you.
yes, right.
And it's like, what's my phone number? What's my so I think that those things are going to come up like, what did that do? What does that do? Like that's just that.
Yes. Yes. My daughter, who doesn't have type 1, but had to mail her checks to her landlord. Who on
Oh,
earth, what landlord is asking for checks in the mail? We had to
yeah.
go through so many things. What's a money order? Where do I put the stamp? It was texts from my teenagers. It was really
Text from a
funny.
teenager.
Yeah.
That's
It
it.
was great. But they don't know what they don't know.
Looking back, and I know hindsight is 2020, what are some of the best things you did to help yourself during that time? Let's say the first even 5 years.
I think one of the best things I did was surround myself with community and also allow myself to be picky about community. And I didn't realize
Oh,
this at the time, but there are certain people with whom you're going to connect, right? And you're going to vibe with, and there are certain people you're just not going to click with. I say this all the time, we all parent differently. So why would we think that we'd parent the same around diabetes or any
yeah.
health condition? And there's no right way to do this. As long as you got to put insulin in and you got to measure your blood sugar. There's a lot more to it than that,
Right.
but there's a lot of different ways to live well with type 1. Like some people do a super low carb diet.
Right.
Some people do a high carb, high fat diet. I mean, food is a whole other issue, but there's a lot of ways to do this. And I felt in the very beginning that there were certain people, especially on the internet, there were a lot of blogs back then. I was so lucky. I was right at the beginning of blogging. So there was a lot of people out there, were a lot of people out there sharing their stories. And some people I found really inspiring. And some people I found not my jam.
Yeah.
And I let myself cordon myself off and say, those people are great, but I don't want to be part of that group. This is where my people are.
Yeah.
And I think that was very helpful to me because it's so easy to feel judged as a parent. And I found a lot of adults with type 1 who were frankly a little bit easier on us than some of the moms were. They were so hard on themselves. And it took me a long time to feel confident enough where I could have conversations with them. So that was the first few years. I also always use humor, and I'm so glad I allowed myself to laugh. Sometimes a little dark humor, but
Yeah.
there's so much funny. When you have a toddler with type 1, it is a circus every day. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, I'll never forget looking over at him. We were on vacation one year and he had a Nintendo DS, like a little DS, and it needed a stylus. It was a little handheld game. And he had no stylus, and he had found in his kit an old syringe because we didn't use syringes anymore. Thank God it had the
Right.
cap on it. He's literally using a syringe as a stylus for his game. And I'm like, okay, only us,
Oh,
right?
Stacey,
Only
we
people
call
do.
that medical play.
Yeah,
We love that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and that's another thing. We did so much medical play. Every stuffed animal of his had type 1. Right
Oh,
now, there are so many wonderful examples of that. Like Mattel just came out with a type 1 Barbie.
I saw
But
that. It was just
oh,
yesterday or the day
yeah,
before.
amazing. But back in the day, Elmo had diabetes. And so did Bob the Builder, because why else was he wearing that pouch around his waist? My son had a pouch with an insulin pump in it. So Bob the Builder obviously had
Bob the
type 1.
Builder is such a good throwback. I had forgotten
Right?
about
Because he had the
Bob.
little
Yeah.
toolkit around his waist. Well, my son was like, "Oh, he's got a pump on, obviously." So whenever he saw it or he led with that, we would lean into it. Like with the Elmo stuffed animal, he had juice box stains all over him because my son would say, "Oh, Elmo's low and he needs a juice box." Or
Love.
I'm getting an infusion set. He needs one too. And we didn't have infusion sets to spare, which is the way the pump connects to your body. But we would take an old discarded one, like tape it to Elmo.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, I think we did really right. We let him express himself. We let him get frustrated. Infusion sets hurt. They're like getting a big shot. You only do
Yeah.
them every 3 days or so, but it still sucks. So
Yeah.
when he was little and we had to change it, I would say, you can say all the potty words you want. Like you can yell the
Amazing.
potty, and he would be like, poop, pee pee. And he's 20 years old. And to make me laugh sometimes, he will still do it. It's so funny.
Wait, that is I love this so much. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's no rules when it hurts, right? You get
Oh,
through it how
well,
you
you
need to.
cursing helps relieve pain. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I've read a study. I
I
choose
mean,
to do it.
I can validate that for myself. You stub a toe and you say a curse word, it gets a little bit better.
Cursing in kids. I don't want him saying the real words, but you can say
You
pee
could say
pee all
poop.
you want.
Oh my gosh, this is a new strategy. I just absolutely love it. So you've started Diabetes Connection, and you kind of mentioned you started in the blogging era, such a fun era to be in and look
Ah,
back and think about all that we wrote on the internet and now we're sharing on the internet. What have you found in your diabetes community and what do you love sharing and talking about?
I think most of the, and I'll talk about moms. I do a new event called Moms Night Out, and 4 times a year we go to different cities and have an event for moms of kids with diabetes and women with type 1. And what surprised me and continues to surprise me is how difficult it is for people to create community in their local town. I'm a very outgoing person. I like to say I have a bulletproof ego, and I only say that because I've done events where I'm the only person who's shown up. Like I had a monthly coffee in Charlotte where I live, and sometimes 20 people would come, but sometimes it was just me, and it never
Yeah.
bothered me, and it never occurred to me that that fear of no one showing up would stop other people from doing it, which when I say that out loud, it sounds like I'm insane, right? That's a very normal reaction for people to have. So doing these Moms Night Out events has helped us bring local community together and hopefully make it last. But I've been really surprised by that, but so encouraged by when these moms connect. Inevitably, there are so many women who say, I thought I was the only person. I thought I was failing my kid. I thought I wasn't doing it right. I thought I was the only person with this fear. And they are in a room with other women who realize, and it helps them realize that we're all scared, right? We all are afraid of messing this up. And it's really, really hard to mess up. These kids are going to be okay. If you love them, you pay attention, you do your best. I mean, boy, it really is hard. I don't want to make it sound easy, but truly, if you care about your kid, it's going to be okay. I don't know if that answers your question. I got off
No,
topic. I
it
get very
does.
emotional about it.
No, it's because do you know you're becoming the nurse who stepped in your room at the beginning?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That nurse who came in and took her time to say it's going to be okay. Like you're giving that gift to others. And then I can assume or hope that maybe you have friends that are 5 to 10 years beyond what your son is and you can learn from them about young adulthood and independence and managing and transferring from pediatric to adolescent
Mm,
care is its own other episode as you said.
yeah.
So there's a lot to learn from each other.
I don't know where I would be without those mentors. We call them veteran moms, right? The veterans.
Yeah, the
And I have
veterans.
so many friends Benny's 20, their children are in their 30s, even in their 40s, and we continue to learn from each other. I'm so grateful because what's interesting is they have, they're helpful so much on the mental side of things, and we're helpful on the technology side of things because
Yeah,
the technology in diabetes has changed a lot in the last 10 years. And it's
yeah.
really wild to see people who are 30 years old who've had shots forever switching to automated insulin delivery systems. It's a whole new world. So it's a lot of fun to keep sharing. But yeah, I do. Thank God I have those ladies. I don't know what I'd do without them.
It's my favorite question I love to ask. And what is something you learned about yourself since navigating this journey with Benny? Maybe something you didn't know before.
Boy, it's funny. When I gave birth to my daughter, my first child, I don't know about you. I don't know how hard that was going to be. Like nobody, they tell you the beautiful things about births and babies, and nobody
So
really wants to
hard.
scare you. But like 4 weeks later, I was like, I'm a freaking superhero. Like I
Yeah.
am so strong. Look what I did. And I got the wind knocked out of me with this type 1 diabetes diagnosis. I was so scared of what our lives were going to look like. And I knew we could do it. I really did. But I thought we were going to have to sacrifice everything. I thought we were going to really have to change our lives in a way that was terrifying to me. I mean, at the very least, I was like, well, he's never eating sugar again. He's
Yeah.
never leaving the house. He's not going to have a sleepover. He's never going to
Right.
college. Like, this is it.
Yes.
And none of that happened. And what I learned about myself, boy, with humor and information and confidence,
Hmm.
we can really do anything. And is that a bit of an exaggeration? Sure, right? But I really learned that I lean in. I'm going to answer this in many different ways. Sorry. But like, I'm
Yes.
very curious about things. I love to learn. But at the same time, I really learned that, and I said it already, just loving your kid, caring about your child will really lead you in the right direction. I mean, diabetes is so technical, right? You have to do a lot of physical stuff, but there's so much to the mental side of it as well that I hadn't really thought of. And using that humor and using those connections to learn, to grow, to give my son the gift of humor, to let him laugh at diabetes in a way that like took away its power,
Yeah.
I think really helped. I learned that I could do it. I
Yeah.
learned that I could do it. And so could he.
Hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, Stacey, we're just getting a tiny little taste of all the amazing things you bring to the world. Where can people read your book? First of all, the title is so funny. Second of all, how can they follow you and learn more from you?
Yep. So it's the world's worst diabetes mom series because I hate perfection. We're all about making mistakes and learning from it. Everything's at diabetes-connections.com. It's
Perfect.
books, podcasts, Mom's Night Out, all sorts of fun stuff.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for being here. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you that you had hoped to talk about?
I think we covered the gamut. I mean, I would just say with whatever you're doing, there's always going to be a myth of perfection. And it doesn't matter if it's in packing your kids' school lunch or managing their life threatening chronic illness, right? There's always going to be this myth and this pressure that comes at us as moms about being perfect and living up to this standard. It is such garbage. There's no such thing as perfection. Do not put that pressure on yourself. Safe and happy is the place to be, man. And that being able to accept that, and I still fight against it all these years later. But being able to accept that is really a gift that I hope you can give yourself.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I even feel it in myself as a female business owner, a
Yeah,
mom trying to do this, that there's this perfect strategy that I need to execute in order to get XYZ. So you're really speaking to me with that. Thank you.
you're welcome. And I got to
Yes.
live it too.
Oh, yes, I know. I love just calling it what it is, and that's garbage.
It is
That's
garbage.
perfect.
As a parent, you want to be there for your child, especially when it comes to their health. But healthcare can be overwhelming and confusing. The good news is child life specialists are experts who help families navigate these challenges. But often our support is only in hospitals. So imagine if you had access to these valuable tools and resources all the time. You would be able to understand medical procedures, explain them to your child, and help them feel less anxious, which also makes you probably feel less anxious. So when your child visits the doctor, has surgery, or has a medical procedure, having the right information and support can make all the difference. You, the parent, can be prepared to answer their questions, calm their fears, and advocate for their needs. Child Life Specialist tools are ready to be in your hands right now through our app Support Spot. All you have to do is go to the iOS or Android store, type in Support Spot. We are giving all of our listeners on this podcast access to the app for just $19.99 for an entire year. You are going to have, I'm not kidding, 7 years worth of resources and support and information that we have been building at Child Life on Call at your fingertips. With these tools in your pocket, you can transform the way your family experiences medical care. Parents, you deserve to be informed and feel confident in your child's healthcare journey. And by having access to Support Spot, you can ensure that your child feels supported and understood no matter what medical challenges come your way. For those of you who are joining us today, I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I am a child life specialist. And the suggestions and tips and resources that I talk about with parents on this podcast may be great for you and they may not be right for you. So, the most important person you can talk to about getting support is your care team, your doctor who knows your story and your child's story. So, regardless of maybe what I mention or what other families mention here, we're not licensed therapists, we're not doctors. We're having a conversation about what the parenting journey has been like. So, please keep that in mind as you listen today.
Hey everyone, it's Katie. We've started running ads through Libsyn to support this show. These are called programmatic ads. We do not pick each brand, but we can block categories that don't align with our values. Your support means the world, and this helps us continue creating great content, pay some bills, and hopefully upgrade our gear in the future. Thanks so much for being such a loyal listener, and I'm so glad you're here.